Hi, good evening. My name is Jay Rothman. I am the host of the show, Real Men, Real Talk Live. If you happen to miss last week's episode, we had one of the original Fab Five joining us, Charles Maddox, in the studio. And here's a clip from last week's show of Charles dropping his own truth.
One of the things that I wanted to make sure I was is better than what the example what that my father left and that my mother left. Because even till to this day, her emotional abuse is like, if my kids got 1% of the emotional abuse that she does with me on a daily basis, man, they would really have a cause to hate me per se. But yet I keep going over there and taking that abuse because it's the right thing to do. To make sure, because in her old age and her sickness, that I could say, you know what? I stuck through it. It was about, at the end of the day, it's about if she passes away, what I have to look in the mirror and say, man, I did what I could, even how bad she ran me.
Again, my name is Jay Rothman. Welcome to Real Men, Real Talk Live. I'd like to welcome back my co-host this evening. We have Evis Love, the man of the land from down under. He calls Australia home. Welcome back, Evis Love.
Thank you, brother. Nice to have all the brothers on the set tonight, man.
We have yes, indeed. We have Jeff Fasano coming in hot off of a shoot this evening, coming in from Nashville, Tennessee. Welcome back, Jeff.
Thank you, Jay. Good to be back. Good to be here. Good to have all four of us here. It's been a while. It's like going on summer vacation, you know.
It's been about a month since we've had all four of us back together, at least 4 episodes. I want to take a moment here to welcome back our brother Josh Richer, who was deep diving into the season on a tank. Welcome back. We missed you. Welcome home, Josh Richer.
Missed you guys. Thanks for holding down the fort, and I'm just so honored and grateful to be back under this roof, sharing words, sharing love, sharing energy with you three beautiful men. So thank you for being amazingly you as well.
It's good to have you back, Josh. I want to take a moment here as we wait for some of our viewers and listeners to show up tonight for episode 160. Tonight's topic is going to be all about from dependence to codependence to independence. And this is just coming off of what we celebrate here in the United States, Independence Day, which was just a couple of 24 hours ago. And in our production meeting just yesterday, we decided to kind of use that as an angle to come in here. Evis, I want to invite you to kick us off, get us hot, light us up, and get us going on tonight's episode, especially coming off of the short clip that we just replayed from last week's episode where Charles Maddox shared a truth in his life and how he chooses to show up in his relationship with his mom. So what is tonight's episode about, and what's your takeaway from what we heard?
Yeah, thank you, and brothers and sisters all the way here from the land down under. And as always, from the bottom of our heart, if you can share it out into the community, we'd appreciate you. Help it out into the algorithm. But yeah, no, it was a beautiful clip, and it was nice to have the brother back last week, but also to have all of the brothers back on the set tonight, because I will say, man, there is a little bit of codependence to have us all on the set at times. You know, we come into this world and we start to identify ourselves through the self. And I've mentioned it in previous shows, from that tender age of 2 to 4 years old. We start to extend our human experience through the emotions of who we are and what we start to feel based on how we feel around other people. Now, that could be our caretakers, as our brother just shared in that beautiful clip. It could be the teachers that start bringing us up through the little school, the primary school we call here in the land down under, or kindergarten. It could be even the aunties or uncles that, start to look after us through those tender ages of our life. And what happens is that we can emotionally, psychologically get reliant on that person, that partner, whatever it may be within our life, that at a deeper level can cause an addiction on an emotional level. Now, when we depend on someone from that early age, obviously we're only, able to do so much within our life. But when we take on that codependence, what happens is that we lose our identity. We lose track of who we are. We're unable to, have free thinking. We're unable to really discern from what may be right or wrong based on our own purpose, our own values, our own way of getting back onto our dreaming path, or what you might know as your soul path or plan. So what happens is that many people that come into the adult life being codependent lose that independence within their life because they don't feel valid. They've actually lost their identity. They need the outside world, that person, to validate who they are, what they do, or what they attempt to be going within their life. And what happens when that validation comes in from people, places, and things, they are affirming your own identity that you have lost touch with from those childhood years. So look, it's going to be a deep show, man. And I want to let the brothers in on this because I want to go into being able to ask yourself your questions about whether you feel that you're codependent within your life. I want to help you be able to break that codependence so you become independent. And then I'm going to share a little bit about what interdependence means to help you on your journey.
Damn,
interdependence.
Let's go, Jeff. Let's go, brother.
Well, I think this all came about in our production meeting yesterday. One of the big shifts in my life in the last short while anyway, actually one of the things that I realized in my life was, to a certain extent, of how I was looking outside of myself, as Ev said, for validation. I really didn't realize it at a certain extent, how at times, not all the time, but at times when I'd be triggered by something where that would challenge my sense of self, my sense of value, my sense of worth, how when it would trigger that core wound within me, how then I would look outside of myself for validation. Now, obviously, it's not me, Jeff, the adult. It's that wounded little boy inside of me that's looking for mom for validation. That's what was transpiring, what would and still at times does transpire in my life when my core wound is triggered and it disrupts my inner sense of who I am and sense of beingness. I immediately look outside of myself for validation of who I am. Thus, being dependent upon that person I go to give me that sense of self, sense of value, sense of love of self, sense of who I am. That is the core, one of my core wounds. When you get to that core wound, it's going in and finding that wounded child who back 5, 6, 7, 10 years old was looking to mom and dad for that. Because mom and dad, a healthy mom and dad, would begin to fortify that within the 5-year-old, 6-year-old, 7-year-old, and 10-year-old. You're wonderful. You're fantastic. Fortify that. More than likely, obviously, mom and dad didn't do the fantastic job that we all had hoped. And thus that core wound still lies inside of me. But I've raised my awareness and consciousness to it, so then I can come in as the adult and reparent and be with that wounded child to fortify, yes, you are loved exactly where you are. Whatever process you're going through right now, whatever wound is surfacing, and whatever feelings you're having right now, you're fine. You're wonderful. You're loved for who you are, not what you look like, not what you're doing for others.
There you go. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Josh, you were going to say something?
Oh no, it's just, I was caught in that cycle as well, and it's crazy how much it drove my life, how much it affected. I mean, I like pushed myself. It's part of one of the reasons I got as successful as I have, because every little bit that as hard as I worked, it was never enough to fill that hole, that void that you're talking about, Jeff. And it was, I always needed more, and I needed to push harder and set my sights higher and shoot bigger, and, to get that love and to get that approval and to get that validation that I am enough. And I am. And, and this was pre being able to give any of that to myself. I drove myself into the ground. And it's funny now, because my majority of my TV career was that. And being back on Shark Tank again, this last time since I've, I'll admit it's probably been within Jeff, the last year. It was probably a year ago. I think the last time I was on Shark Tank, it still felt good for that validation. And now it was really tough this go around, because the good part was gone. That part that, like, you're willing to put up with all this misery and all these other things. You're willing to put up with so much in your life when you are getting that validation from it, when that is your, source of validation. And when you don't need it, then all there is pain. There was just, it was just hard ass work this time. And I wasn't as into it as I have been in the past. I'll fully admit it. And then I noticed all the stuff that was just hard and gruesome and tough to do. It was like, I wasn't getting any of the feel goods anymore. I didn't need it. Because it's coming from within. So there's codependency in that as well. And, I drove myself to prove, my worth. And so that was I guess we could call it the drug, right?
Yeah. Well, for me, it used to be, it's no longer is. And I had to actually shift my relationship with it, is when I would do a photo shoot, and then when I would show the images to somebody, I was dependent upon that for my validation of who I am. Think about that. That's what I do. That's not who I am. But I know exactly, it's woven so tightly in there. I don't need it anymore. Like Josh, I've transcended that. But what happened was, when that wasn't there any longer, when I didn't need the validation for somebody to go, oh, this was fantastic, Jeff, this is amazing. And then I would go, oh, wow, that's wonderful. I've proven to them that I'm worthwhile.
Mm-hmm.
When that wasn't there any longer, my whole relationship with what I do shifted. I had to find a new relationship with it because I was doing it with that attachment of validation. If you love the images that I did for you, if you love my book, then you must love me.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing.
So,
yeah.
I want to ask you, Av, what are you making of this dialogue, this little tennis match or ping pong between Jeff and Josh? And I want to bring it back to you too, because if I recall, at one time your title was fitness model. You were on stage, competing, your body competing to be acknowledged. What was that relationship like for you as a fitness model? And navigating through the same slippery slope that so many of us go down, especially as men, if that is your role in your family, that is your role in your community, is to be the provider, yet that can become our identity, and it either feeds us, it fuels us, or it leads us, it kills us.
Mm-hmm.
What do you make of that? And how did you wrestle with that? Go ahead, Josh, real quick.
Real quick before you answer that, Ev, this is the point in the show where I wish we had like a whole staff and we could be like, Jamie, can we find the clip of Evis on stage? Roll it, Jamie. I'd kill to see that.
Or Jamie's back there intuitively doing it on his own and then whispering in our ears, I got it.
Yeah. Got the clip. All right, we're gonna roll in 3, 2,
we gotta roll.
Yeah.
Exactly. You never know, brother. The way that tech's going, we might be able to do that very shortly. But yeah, man, like this extends back to those early days again. We're going back to that childhood, because when we try to look and mimic the caretakers within our lives, then obviously it's natural for us as a child to seek external validation for our own worth and value. What happens is, like I mentioned at the start, it actually forms unhealthy and unbalanced relationships, not only with other people, man, but with ourselves. So I remember a time when, I've talked about the earlier days when mum wasn't around at a time, and I'd actually been moved to my dad's for a while. And then she actually came and visited a game of cricket we call here in Australia. I'm not too sure if you guys are aware of that game. It's very English. But I was playing cricket. I hadn't seen mum for ages. And I remember to go out to bat, and very similar to you holding a baseball. But on that occasion, I got what they call in the land down under a duck. So it means I got no runs. And I walked off there as a child, crying my eyes out because I didn't get any validation, or didn't feel I was good enough when my mum had come to see me play cricket. Funnily enough, to cut a long story short, I went out there in the second innings, and what you do is you go into the field, and I ended up picking up 6 wickets of the other team. So I made up for it on that side. But what I'm saying is that later on in life, how that can affect us, and did affect me. And look, when I even jumped up on stage with the fitness modeling that you're talking about, Jay, it was actually more so for my own challenge sake. I wasn't even looking for the validation of anyone by that time within my life. I actually enjoyed the challenge of getting to a particular goal or intention that I'd set out. They give you a rule of thumb of 12 weeks to dial in stage ready. So the validation had gone way past by the time I jumped up on stage to be that fitness model side of things. But taking it back off the stage, taking it back off the field, if we are still seeking that validation for our own worth and value, what does become the problem is that it makes us hard to set boundaries within our life with the fear of upsetting other people, our partners, and or friends. So we continually want to feel validated by other people, places, and things if we don't set up those boundaries, we become the people pleaser. We become the doormat in relationships. And my brothers and sisters, believe me, the narcs, the narcissists, whatever you want to call them, they can pick out a codependent person within their life that are looking for their own emotions to be validated. And that's why we fall into these relationships. And unfortunately, it gets even tougher when you've got two codependent coming into a relationship. So some of the things for me that I had to find, even in those early days from that cricket example, were like, my own personal identity, like I said, my own needs, my own emotional well-being and feelings and thoughts being met from the inside. So it does come back to another not so simple case of self-love.
What do you make of this, Mr. Rothman?
Well, I'm just kind of listening here, and I'm really stuck on this. I want to share this with our viewers right here, right now, and I want to ask you to listen carefully and see if you identify with this. Are you still looking for validation? Let me repeat that. Am I still looking for validation of who you think I am to be okay with me?
Say it again.
Am I still looking for validation of who you think I am to be okay with me?
Who you think?
Do you have that? Do you have that written down?
Yeah, I do.
Can you email that to me or text that? There's
a lot of psychological trauma in that.
Think about that. That is, I'd like to ponder that for a while.
I mean, that's just exactly what we're talking about here tonight. When I'm reading it, it's actually one of our first highlights in tonight's episode. It's right there. It's on all of our social media platforms. But the essence of it is what we're talking about, is that we're not okay unless someone validates how you see us for us to be okay. And we could spend our whole lifetime chasing that validation. And then there's two kinds of validations we're chasing. Either one where they're going to validate how we feel about ourselves, which is we're living, many of us, in our old core wounds from our childhood. Or they're going to validate how they see us, and are we okay with that in that moment? And it is a very, very challenging way to live our life. Because the basically is that we're seeking validation from other people. We're plugging in, we have that intravenous going, hoping that you'll fill me up. Jeff, you talked about it even with your new book, Americana Portrait Sessions. And, I want to bring it back to you, Josh, because I want to just let you know how proud I am of you. I'm proud of you because there's a significant shift that's happened for you in the 15th season, I believe, that you just wrapped up. This was 15. And in this season, you actually had some significant breakthroughs and epiphanies. And you acknowledge that in your opening segment of tonight's show. And that, what used to fill you up didn't fill you up this time. What happens is as soon as you have that awareness, you start to see all the true imperfections. You start to see all the blemishes. You start to see all the whiteheads and the pimples and all the things that you didn't see before. And when you have that moment of clarity, it brings you to a potential pivot, which is then you get to ask yourself one of the vitals, which is this good for me? And how important is this?
Yep.
And then we get to make the next, let's say, choice coming from not from the egoic mind, but from the heartfelt soul. And when we talk about is it good for us, we're talking about is it good for me as the adult? Is it good for me also as a child? And is it good for me even with my ego that's always going to be out there wrestling to manage the outcomes of our relationships? So I suspect you're going to have some time now to kind of process all this and kind of unravel it. and make some healthy choices for yourself. But you know what? It takes courage to, first of all, even show up and have that awareness, that crystal clear awareness. Then it takes even more courage to acknowledge it as we live stream across the globe on Real Men Real Talk Live. So, Josh Richer, welcome back. Welcome home. We missed you. We love you. And any way that we could be here to help you unravel, give you the support that you need as you navigate through this new season of asking those questions. You know, how important is it, and is it good for me? And then your answers will come from within. And I want to invite you just to trust your truth as the only truth. You know, many of us, I don't know how many viewers can acknowledge this. When we go down that rabbit hole, we reach out to 3, 4, or 5 people to ask their perspective and opinion.
Sure. Yeah.
And that's another one of those things that can confuse us more, because we don't, just because they give us their opinion doesn't mean that's what's best for us. They're not stepping in. They're not the one working on that set. They're not the one who's hammering out that for 26, 27 days in a row, however many hours, 12 or 15-hour days. The true essence of your truth and your answer is within you. Nobody has it for you.
No. And that's just it. Once you break the cycle, you know, I mean, if there's anything you're getting for yourself from outside of yourself, then it'll never be enough. It can't ever be enough. So, yeah, the truth, the answers, and the freedom are within inside us.
And I don't know about you guys, but I could tell you that when I've had those epiphanies, those moments of clarity, boy, you lose a quick 10 pounds, right?
Yeah,
Just an energy, and it brings you to that absolute feeling of, wow, there's freedom in that. There's like, I don't know how else to describe it. How would you describe it, Ev, when you have those moments of clarity, when you realize that, you know, with something that you've been so passionate about for so long, and it filled you up, and it gave you, to some extent, some level of joy. It may have given you some perspective on identity, as far as this is who I am, and all those illusionary, maybe not even truths.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a sense of fulfillment, isn't it? I mean, look at that
Bingo.
word.
That's it.
Fulfillment. You've fulfilled that emotional well-being within your life. That particular energy attracts more positive energy within your life. You become a much more confident person, attracting more confident people within your life, attracting more confident circumstances. But yeah, man, what you're saying there is, you know, really learning to have full self-acceptance, you know, loving all of the flaws, loving yourself, and really being able to build up that self-esteem within your life. Because to me, really, you know, your healthy self is to heal thyself. And once you've healed thyself, that is when you know thyself.
Can you say that one more time, Ev? I think we all could hear that one more time. Let that drop in.
I write this up on the board when I do the workshop. So to heal thyself is your healthy self. And that healthy self is to know thyself.
Yep. And each step we take towards that in the process, one of the important things to understand that I'm understanding as I move through my process is to be in each step of the process. You're not going to heal everything in one fell swoop. You're going to heal what you need to heal to move to the next step, to the next step, the next step in the process. And as we do that, you gain another piece of the puzzle of self. Each step we take in the process, once we move through that step, boom, another piece falls in, another aha moment, another piece of our true self falls in, and we go, wow, I'm starting to know myself more deeply. Another step in the process. You heal that part. Another piece of the puzzle comes in and go, wow, I'm even getting to know myself and love myself more deeply now. That's what Ev was just saying. As we heal each part of the wound and go deeper and peel a layer and then another layer and then another layer and another layer, we are moving in to knowing who we are, so we can then be who we are, and be who we are with full self-acceptance without needing to go outside of ourselves to look for that validation.
There you go.
When we do, Jay just brought up something really quick. When we're doing something and we ask someone's opinion, that's all we're asking for. We're not asking for them to validate us. So what do you think about this? Okay, does that resonate for me where I am right now, or doesn't it resonate for me?
There you go. There you go. I want to bring something up here on the screen right now, because I want to shift gears and use this as an opportunity for us to go in a new direction right here, right now. This view of ours actually says, and I know who this is, and I'm excited to see you in Sedona very shortly. But this view of ours, who's been with us for some time now, she says, I hope that I can one day love myself enough to forgive myself.
We can do a whole show on forgiveness.
Well, we've done a few of them, but this is her acknowledging this right now. Who wants to take a stab at this and kind of share some of our own experiences and lessons of the process of loving ourselves enough to forgive ourselves, and which really can come first? Do we first love ourselves to forgive ourselves, or do we first work on forgiving ourselves to come home to love ourselves?
Well, my question to that person would be, what are you forgiving? What do you need to forgive yourself for? As we deepen our love of self, to me, what pops into my head is that I did something in my past as another person that I need to forgive myself for. So my question would be, what are you looking and what do you need to forgive yourself for? That would be my question in response to that.
Beautiful. Thank you, Jeff Fasano. Josh, you want to jump in here, or you want to pause?
Yeah, I mean, I felt the same way too in my past, years back now. That one's been a while, but I felt that I was, I had done something unforgivable. I felt there was some part of me that was flawed or unforgivable, and that I had hurt people in my past, and I was carrying that with me, that shame and that, hurt and that pain of that, that was my ultimate pain, was, something in my life affecting somebody else. And when I did that, then that was unforgivable. And I was therefore then unlovable and unacceptable to the world. And these were all very heavy emotions to carry. So my heart goes out to you completely, and I feel you. But look at a playground with kids playing. Can you pick out one kid and go, you're unforgivable? No, you wouldn't do that ever.
Wow.
So think of that little kid as yourself out there. Nobody's pointing at you and saying you're unforgivable. We're all forgivable. And so.
Wow. Let's take a moment here before I invite Ev to jump in. Just a moment of just quiet. All I keep hearing is Josh's voice saying, the child is forgivable. We're all forgivable. Ev, I want to invite you to take a moment here and break this down from your perspective of having done some work around forgiveness and love of self. Which comes first, forgiveness or love of self to then forgive? Does there have to be one before the other? And what do you make of this statement that this viewer shared with us? So it's, by the way, takes so much courage. And thank you. I know who you are, and I love you, and I can't wait to give you a hug and actually have an amazing meal cooked by the creative food artist, my partner Mary, this weekend. So I can't wait for that moment, and we're going to love you up till you love yourself right here, right now in Sedona. But in any event, Ev, what do you make of this? Break it down for us, please.
It's beautiful because it's another walk back home and journey back home to heart space. We only recently talked a little bit about love, returning back to love. And we talked a lot about, the heart space and learning the beautiful frequencies and octaves of that heart space. Remember, love comes in different frequencies. It comes in different vibrations. So sometimes love is tough love. So the journey back home to self-love is really understanding the lesson. I'll say it again. That journey back home to self-love is understanding the lesson that is not allowing you for the forgiveness. Remember, forgiveness is never about the other person or other thing. It's about you. So to forgive, what are you giving? You are forgiving to yourself, present self, from your future self that may have you stuck in time from your past self. So when we receive that lesson, we can then move forward. I mean, how many times do you hear someone say, oh, I went and asked for forgiveness off this person and they said they forgot about the story. Oh, I forgot about that. So it is always coming back to the self to understand the lesson and receive that gift. I always say this, my brothers and sisters, remember, love recognizes love, and that will help you return back home.
Love that, Ev.
Wow.
Here's my question to you guys. I'm gonna pull a J and flip the script a little bit. Let's say you are in a codependent relationship. Is it possible to heal while being in that relationship?
Ooh.
In your opinions?
You can go first, Jeff. I'd love to have
Oh, I was going to defer to Jay.
I'm going to invite you to ask that question one more time for us as well as our viewers to let that drop down into the heart space.
If you are in a codependent relationship and you're healing, you're on and going through your healing journey, is it possible to stay in that relationship while you heal?
Well, I love that question. It's a brilliant question. I can only answer it from my own experience. I was very codependent in my life. That's, hands up. I was definitely the poster boy for that. And it takes both partners, both individuals having the awareness that it's not working anymore for themselves as well as for the relationship. And that means that we both would have to get very busy to do the deep work to really get to the root of what codependency is. Codependency is just a symptom. Like every other disease out there, emotional and physical disease, these are all symptoms. We treat them as though they are the problem, but they're not. They're just a symptom. When we have the courage to kind of sift away and dig down and take that little shovel and just kind of start to turn the soil, go in deep, nurture the soil, and understand that what is at the root of codependency is a lack of love of self, stemming from our childhood where we didn't receive the nurturing and nourishing that as a child we should be receiving, because a parent was not available for us, because they were suffering in their own inner turmoil and pain. So if you have two people come together that have always shown up codependent in their relationships, but they are both in what I call surrender, and they both are seeking their own understanding of why they showed up that way, I think it's possible. And the reason I think that is because that was me. And that was my beautiful partner, Mary, as well. We were both extremely codependent in our past relationships. But we were so sick of it. We couldn't do it anymore. We were seeking understanding of what brought us to that strategy in all of our relationships. And at no time did either one of us throw in a towel. At no time did either one of us give up, judge, sling, or hurt each other. Instead, we held space for each other. We respected each other. We honored each other. And through that process, we didn't have the back history of hurting each other. We met at the beginning of our journey of healing from that, I'll call it a disease. And through that journey, we both found our way home to learn how to live, how to love, how to honor, how to respect one another without being attached to codependent behavior. And it's new for both of us. So it is possible. But what I don't know, Josh, is I think it would be much more difficult if we were in that codependent relationship together and then tried to break free of it together. What do you make of that, Ev? Is it possible?
I think you nailed it, brother. And you're a beautiful example of that. But thanks for sharing, my friend.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful, Jay. Thank you.
Two codependent people coming into a relationship unaware can be turmoil. Now, you have to be very aware of your own triggers emotionally, what you've been harvesting, your emotional well-being up until this point within to the relationship for your own fulfillment. Because if two codependent people fall into a relationship, that's when we've talked on the previous episode as well. They come quite vampiric. They're actually leaning on each other for that energy. So they lean on each other to fulfill those needs, those wants, those desires, whatever you feel within the relationship. And until you become self-aware and that, you know what, it is healthy. You know what, Mary? You know what, Jay? I want some time away. I'm going to go for a couple of hours. You know what? I might even go for a couple of days. That's healthy, brothers and sisters. But if someone was to turn around and say, oh, what are you really up to? What are you really doing? That's where it can become unhealthy, because that person has come codependent on that particular person for their own lack of self-esteem. So this is where I'm going to dive into a little bit about interdependence. So when we're able to build up our own self-esteem, which in turn builds up our own self-worth and our own value within to the world, then in any relationship, if the other person comes into the relationship as an independent person also, this becomes interdependent. You are no longer looking for the other person to provide, to take care of your needs. Because you know what? I can take care of my own, but I enjoy caring for you. I don't take care of you.
Mm.
So there's subtle differences here, brothers and sisters. And this is when we get into these interdependent relationships, which I really feel as we come into the future is now, we can start calling non-attached, unconditional love connected partnerships. Deep.
Ooh. Josh, what do you think of what you heard?
Beautiful answers, fellas. Beautiful answers.
I just want to just cap it off by saying I do think it's possible, but both individuals have to be in surrender. Both individuals have to be willing to take accountability, not for how the other person showed up with blaming and pointing a finger, but just being accountable for how I've shown up, let's say. And what am I willing to do to change my own behavior and really look deeper at the why? Ask yourself those questions. Why did I show up that way? I could tell you as a father, we talk about we do the best we can with what we know, but we also do the best we can with what we don't know. And the truth is that a lot of people say, for me, I was a great father. And I did the best I could. But it's a lifetime of cleaning up a mess. Not that my children created, but that I created. Because I was plugging into my own children to fill me up, to give me something that I was lacking within me.
Mm-hmm.
So as a parent, today, I live in trust. I live in patience, and I live in faith. But somehow, some way, the healing will take place. I can't control how other people choose to or not choose to. I only have control over how I show up. And I continue to do my own work, continue to focus on healing my own core wounds that led me to codependency in my own relationships. And I tell you what, it can be a beautiful process. This journey of coming home is not something to be afraid of.
Yet it's not for the faint of heart.
I wouldn't want to do it any other way, Jeff Fasano. For me, it's been an 8-year journey. And I'm grateful that
incredible.
At age 54, I woke up and as I couldn't do it anymore. I was tired. As you may be feeling right now. Some of our viewers, even some of our co-hosts may be feeling tired right now. But I want to switch gears here one more time and take us into the next segment of tonight's episode, 160, which is how often do we judge others as a deflection strategy or shield to feel better about ourselves? I'm going to repeat that. How often do we judge others as a deflection strategy or shield to feel better about ourselves? Anyone want to raise their hand and say, yeah, I do that. I judge people. Do we ever not judge? Is it just part of human nature? Is it part of our DNA? Especially, a lot also may depend on the homes we came from. Again, our teachers or our caretakers. How did our parents show up? Were they quick to judge and belittle or make fun of other people? I'm just putting it out there.
Perhaps what you're judging is actually what you're seeing in another that you're judging is really triggering what you judge about yourself.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
It's a question to ask. We've all judged, and we all probably still do at times. Question is that ask yourself, why are you doing that? And if you're open for the answers, to look inside yourself. Most of the time when we're judging others, it's a mirror of what we judge about what's inside of us and how much shame and judgment we have about ourselves. As we heal, which is one of the things that I'm really healing, is the shame and judgment of self. You won't even care about what someone else actually does, and you won't judge it. You might have an opinion about it. It might not resonate for you, but you'll say, okay. So as we really look in the mirror of that, we will see what we still judge and shame about ourselves. Perhaps also what comes to mind is look at somebody excelling in their life, somebody who's successful in their life. And then you look at your life and you judge them for excelling, being successful, living their passion, doing what they enjoy the most. And then you look at your life and then you judge them for the passion that they're excelling with. It's another form of judgment as well. So it all comes down to how much are you judging and shaming yourself?
What do you make of that, Josh?
It's funny. I was just talking with a friend of mine this morning about that. We were talking that, what like really irks you about somebody else, really gets under your skin, really bothers you. And then you look at yourself and you're like, that's what I dislike about me. Or, how often is that the case? And through the years of my healing, I would kind of use that as like a guide to finding out other ways I'm critical of myself and finding little breadcrumbs along the way. When I'd get really irked at someone and they drive me nuts and I go, wait a minute, why is this bothering me so much? Is this because this is something in myself that I don't like to see in the mirror? Something in myself that I don't like to take a look at? So yeah, I used it as a tool, actually. But then the reverse is true too. What we love about people is often what we love about ourselves. So that'll be my tip, trick, and tool, is maybe use those two as your guide.
Exactly.
When you're coming home to self and loving yourself, like look around at the people that you love and why. So yeah, Jeff, what were you going to say?
Well, I was just going to, that's great. You just brought that up because we can become, it comes back to codependence and being possibly in relationships that don't resonate for us. But then there are a whole bunch of relationships that are mirroring back love. But we're in a place where our heart is closed and we're not even seeing or feeling the loving relationships that are in our life, that are, as Ev said, because it's all are fulfilling us, but our focus on the relationships that aren't. One of the things that I'm learning is to really focus on the relationships with those individuals, along with my relationship to what I do as a photographer, and how those relationships are surrounded in love. as opposed to focusing on that one person who triggers me to no end. And it's like that Seinfeld where Jerry was dating this woman and she hated George. George literally broke up with a woman that he was dating because his whole purpose was to get that woman to like him. How much are you doing that in your life? Focusing on that one or two relationship where it's not fulfilling, it's not raising your resonance vibration, but there's about 5 over here that are, and we're not cultivating and nurturing and receiving love in those relationships.
Beautiful. Ev, what do you think? Judgment of why do we judge? And how do we break this?
Very simple, brothers and sisters. There's only one person that judge. It's called your ego. That's the external world. So you got to see who's at the pilot seat, who's driving the body, who's driving the vehicle, so to speak. The ego will only judge. The higher self does not judge. The higher self sees with empathy. The higher self sees with compassion, love, kindness. You talk about when I was so-called competing on stage. I never competed, man. I was happy to be judged by the judges, but I wasn't competing because I was completed. The difference.
That is a huge, huge difference. When people ask me, "Oh, Jeff, it's so competitive out there in the photography world," I look at them and I'm saying, I played baseball, football, and hockey. I competed there to win. I'm an artist. I'm not competing with anybody out there in the world to get a job and then get pissed off and then start to judge the other artists and photographers. It's a crazy, crazy cycle to even look at that that way.
I want to throw I guess more of a question out than anything else. Part of my journey has been really embracing empathy, as you just mentioned in this segment right here, right now, Ev, and for others. But what happens though is that when I'm outside of my protected space, for me, it's in nature or it's in my home, and I'm, let's say, in an environment where there's a lot of people, where I used to go down that rabbit hole of finding fault and judgment. And I show up with a different consciousness about me, which is I embrace being more of a conscious observer. But in doing so, I'm tapping into the heart space where the empathy is there. And so instead of judging, I'm actually embracing empathy and compassion. But I tell you what, man, it is flipping tiring. I'm tired by the end of that event, whatever that might be. I'm exhausted. My question to you is, how can you show up with empathy, not judgment, becoming that conscious observer, and not allowing you to be taken? How do you protect your own body temple from being tired after experiencing that or witnessing that?
You know, the thing is, when we look at someone or we go to some place and it starts to trigger something inside of us that may not resonate for us, what it's triggering is feelings and how we feel about that. That's where the discernment comes in. Wow, I'm listening to this person speak. This is not resonating for me. This is starting to trigger something inside of ourselves. The unhealthy part will go and begin to judge that person and shame that person, as opposed to taking responsibility to the feelings that are coming up inside of us. Well, I'm feeling angry. I'm feeling sad. These are the feelings I'm having about that. And then energetically, we can do whatever we need to do to contain our own energy within that. But if we acknowledge our feelings about it first, then we can take responsibility as opposed to projecting judgment and shame upon others.
Beautiful.
Because it doesn't resonate.
Yeah, I love that, Jeff Fasano. We're coming up. We're at the hour here. I want to invite each one of us to maybe take just a moment here to close us out with what did you pick up from tonight's? What's resonated with you? What's come forward for you from tonight's episode 160?
I'm
Josh?
ready to hear Ev. I'm ready to hear Ev close us out.
Yeah,
Ev, you want to close
that's
this
what
out?
I was,
Ev,
that's
take us
what I
out
was
tonight.
waiting for.
Bring us home, Ev. Bring
I
us
think
home,
it's-
brother.
But before we go there, I do want to again acknowledge having both Jeff Fasano back after missed a couple of weeks. Josh, it's been at least 4, maybe 5 weeks that you haven't been with us. I want to ask you one question, Josh Jay Ritty. How does it feel to be back here on Real Men Real Talk Live tonight?
Right at home. Right at home. It's right as rain. It's funny. Yeah, I was super tired. I only slept a few hours last night, and I was, to be honest, coming into the show, not feeling like I was going to be able to participate much. But honestly, dropping back in with the boys, right at home. Love you guys.
Welcome home, Josh Richard. This is always your home. No matter what, we're here just to love you. We are not here to judge you ever. We've missed you.
Missed you guys too.
Ev, take us home, brother. Take us home.
Beautiful, brothers. Another magic show. And, you guys over there are, I guess, in celebrations of still what you guys know as Independence Day. Funnily enough, I was asking the brothers what that actual day means. And I was quite interested in what the brother said. And, I do a lot of work with the stars. I'm a man of the stars, as I've always said in shows. And funnily enough, this time of the year, we open up a beautiful portal here coming into the 7-7 Lionsgate portal, which goes all the way through to the 8-8 into Augusto. This time of the year, there's a special star in the night sky called Sirius, and it does a beautiful alignment with our sun. And it enters into this portal, and funnily enough, a lot of what is wrapped around that star is all about independent thinking. You can unlearn codependency, my brothers and sisters. It's going to take a lot of work. But one of the things for me that I've learned in my story, in my journey, being codependent, whether it was in relationships, losing that little bit of identity, losing my place in the world and forgetting about my own true values and my gifts. I wasn't accepting myself. I was looking for the acceptance of other people outside of myself, even if that was just one person within that relationship. When that person walked out on the doorstep, it really left my confidence and my self-esteem really low. But I had to build that back up within my own life. What I really say to my brothers and sisters, as you build your own way back to this dependence or independence within your own life, to become that independent, free thinker for your own life, to align with your own values, to your vision, to your purpose, do the basic things and let it take time. Be patient with this. Stop taking ownership for other people's problems. You may need to do your own thing. You may need to establish boundaries. Like we said at the start of this show, or just the back end of this work is not for the faint-hearted. You may need to seek help. You may need to seek support. Just message one of the brothers here on Real Men Will Talk Live. So as I said, this special time of the year, as we come into that particular alignment, allows us to really break those steps of that cycle of codependence and really begin to start to shine your own inner light. On that note, my brothers and sisters, happy Independence Day.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, Ev, it's about fireworks and hot dogs.
And that too, brother.
Two very overrated things.
The false lights.
Blow yourself up for a change.
Really?
How about that?
That's it, man. That's it, man.
On that note, I think it's time to call it a wrap and put a pretty bow on the show. I love you guys, viewers. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week on episode 161 on Real Men, Real Talk
Live.